Commander Aaron Hale adjusted the collar of his uniform as the shuttle doors hissed open. The air of the alien palace was warmer than Earth's, filled with a faint metallic scent. He stepped onto the gleaming floor, boots echoing under the high ceilings. Beside him, the human delegation followed with stiff shoulders and cautious eyes. This was not an ordinary diplomatic mission. It was the first meeting between Earth and the Vyari Empire. The Vyari throne world was a place of wonder. Tall crystal spires rose beyond the palace walls, their surfaces catching the light of two suns. Strange flying creatures circled in the distance, their wings glittering like shards of glass. But inside the grand hall, beauty was mixed with danger. Hundreds of Vyari nobles lined the walls, watching the humans with expressions of curiosity and suspicion. Their tall, slender figures draped in flowing robes, their skin faintly luminous, their sharp eyes unblinking. Aaron felt the weight of every gaze. He was not a diplomat. He was a soldier, assigned as chief of security for the envoy. His job was simple: protect the human representatives at all costs. Yet, as he looked up at the far end of the hall, at the massive throne where the alien queen sat with her court, he knew nothing about this place would be simple. The queen was a commanding figure. Her crown rose like silver antlers, and her voice carried across the chamber with a calm authority that made every ear listen. To her right stood the Princess Young, graceful, with eyes far softer than the others in the room. Unlike the queen, the princess looked almost nervous. She held her hands together, fingers twisting slightly, as though she were not as comfortable with all the grandeur around her. The human ambassador. An older man named Dr. Keene stepped forward and began his speech. He spoke of peace, of trade, of the chance for two civilizations to learn from one another. The words were carefully chosen. But Aaron noticed the alien nobles shifting, whispering to each other, as if they heard not promises but threats. Aaron stayed close to the envoy, scanning the balconies above the pillars, every shadow where danger might hide. His instincts had saved him more than once in war. Here they screamed at him to stay sharp. Then it happened. From the upper level of the hall, a flicker of motion. Aaron's eyes caught the glint of metal too quick for most, but not for him. In an instant, he moved. A weapon discharged, its energy bolt streaking down toward the throne. The princess gasped, frozen. The queen shouted a command. But before anyone else could react, Aaron had already launched forward. His body slammed into the princess, pushing her to the ground. The bolt struck his shoulder, burning through uniform and flesh. Pain exploded through him, but he didn't stop. He curled himself over her, making his body a shield as more shots rang out. Screams filled the chamber. Guards leapt into action, firing upward, chasing the attackers. The nobles fled to the walls, their voices a storm of fear. Aaron barely heard any of it. His focus was on the trembling figure beneath him. The princess stared up at him, wide-eyed. You protected me," she whispered in disbelief. Aaron gritted his teeth, ignoring the burning pain. "Stay down. Don't move." Another shot whined past, striking the marble floor inches away. He shifted, covering more of her until the alien guards finally managed to silence the attackers above. Smoke drifted from the balconies. The assassins cut down or captured. Silence returned to the hall except for the ragged sound of Aaron's breathing. He pushed himself up slowly, his arm weak from the wound. The princess was unharmed. That was all that mattered. But the hall was no longer filled with whispers of suspicion. It was filled with stunned stares. Every Vyari was on him, fragile human who had thrown himself into harm's way for their princess. The queen rose from her throne. Her tall figure descended the steps with measured grace. But Aaron could feel the weight of her attention like a physical force. She stopped before him, her piercing gaze moving from his burned shoulder to his steady eyes. "Why?" she asked, her voice quiet but heavy. "Why would you sacrifice yourself for her?" Aaron, still breathing hard, stood straight despite the pain. His instincts told him to answer carefully. But his heart gave him only one truth. "Because she needed protecting," he said simply. "That's my duty." The queen tilted her head, as though she did not understand. Around her, the nobles whispered again, confusion mixing with awe. Sacrifice was not a language the Vyari understood, not like this. To them, protection was bought, not given freely. To risk one's life without gain seemed alien. The princess, still on the floor, looked from Aaron to her mother. Her lips parted as if to speak, but the queen silenced her with a gesture. "Take him," the queen ordered. 2 alien guards stepped forward, their armor gleaming, their weapons ready. Aaron tensed, but with his arm wounded, resistance would be foolish. They seized him firmly. Pulling him away from the princess, the human envoy shouted protests. Dr. Keene demanded his release, declaring that Aaron had saved royal blood. But the queen's voice cut through the noise like steel. "No," she said. "He will stay. Until I understand." The delegation erupted in arguments, but the queen ignored them. Her eyes remained fixed on Aaron, as though he were some strange puzzle she had to solve. The princess finally found her voice. "Mother, he saved me. You cannot." The queen silenced her again with a sharp glare. "Enough. This human belongs to me now." Aaron clenched his jaw, pain throbbing through his shoulder, but his spirit unbent. He had protected the princess. That was enough for now. Still, deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning. The queen would not let him go easily, and so, with iron grips on his arms and the weight of alien eyes on his back, Commander Aaron Hale was led away not as a hero, not as a guest, but as something else entirely, something the alien queen refused to release. Aaron Hale woke to the strange sound of chimes. His eyes opened slowly, his shoulders still aching from the burn wound. He was not in a human bed. The room was tall and bright, its walls made of smooth crystal that glowed faintly. Strange symbols shimmered across the ceiling, like stars rearranging themselves. He sat up carefully, noticing that his uniform had been replaced. His shoulder was bandaged in soft silver fabric that pulsed faintly with alien energy. The pain was dulled, though not gone. Someone had treated him, but it had not been out of kindness. 2 guards stood at the door. Tall and silent, their armor shining like liquid metal, their eyes watched him without blinking. Aaron knew right away he was a prisoner. He swung his legs off the bed, testing his balance. His body still felt heavy from blood loss, but his soldier's training forced him to stand tall. He scanned the room quickly. No weapons, no comms, no way to contact his team. Just a wide window overlooking the alien city below. The city was breathtaking. Towers of crystal stretched toward the twin suns. Bridges of light connected them, glowing as though alive. Strange ships floated silently through the air, their designs elegant and sharp. It was a place of beauty, but to Aaron, it also felt like a cage. The door slid open. The guard straightened, and there she was, the queen. She entered with slow steps, her silver crown catching the sunlight. The air in the room seemed to grow heavier with her presence. Behind her followed 2 advisors, their robes dark, their eyes sharp with suspicion. Aaron stood at once, keeping his posture firm. His wound ached, but he refused to show weakness. The queen studied him in silence for several moments, as though examining a rare animal. Finally, she spoke. "You are awake." Aaron nodded. "Seems so." "You protected my daughter," she continued, her voice calm, almost too calm. "You threw yourself before a weapon meant to kill her." "Why?" Aaron held her gaze. "Because it was the right thing to do." The queen's lips curved into the faintest frown. "The right thing? You risked your life for one not of your species. For someone who holds no loyalty to you? In our empire, no warrior would waste themselves so carelessly." Aaron let out a slow breath. "Maybe that's the difference between us. Humans don't only protect those who serve them. Sometimes we protect because it's needed." The room went quiet. The queen tilted her head, clearly unsatisfied. Her advisors muttered to each other in their language, the sharp syllables sounding like knives. Finally, she stepped closer. "You speak of duty, of protection, but I sense there is more. You act on instinct, not logic. I must know why." Aaron's jaw tightened. "You won't understand, Your Majesty. Not if you see every life as a piece on a game board." The queen's eyes narrowed, flashing with something dangerous. Yet instead of punishing him, she gave a strange smile. Interesting. She turned to her guards. He stays. One of her advisors spoke up quickly. My queen, the humans demand his release. Their envoy grows restless. They say he is their soldier, not ours. The queen silenced him with a raised hand. He belongs here now. Until I understand what makes him do this. Reckless thing. Humanity hides a secret, and he is the key. Aaron's fists clenched at his sides. He wanted to argue, but he knew it would be useless. She was not asking, she was declaring. The queen left as suddenly as she had arrived, her robe sweeping across the floor. The guards stayed, ever watchful. Aaron was alone again, the weight of her words pressing on him. Hours turned into days. Aaron was given food, strange fruits that glowed faintly, drinks that tasted sharp and cold. His wound healed faster than it should have, thanks to alien medicine. But freedom never came. Every day, the queen summoned him. He was taken to a grand hall filled with strange artifacts, where she asked endless questions. Why do humans fight wars for others? Why do you mourn your fallen? Why do you sacrifice when nothing is gained? Aaron answered as best he could, keeping his tone calm. Because loyalty matters. Because compassion matters. Because some things are more important than survival. The queen listened, her face unreadable. Sometimes she seemed angry, other times fascinated. Her nobles, however, grew restless. Many whispered that keeping a human was dangerous, even dishonorable. But the queen ignored them. One evening, Aaron was escorted not to the queen, but to the gardens of the palace. There, among glowing trees and flowing streams of light, stood the princess. She smiled faintly when she saw him. You are well? Aaron nodded. Better than I expected. Princess lowered her eyes. I never thanked you for saving me. You don't need to, Aaron replied. I only did what anyone should do. Her gaze lifted again, uncertain. Not anyone. In our empire, no one would have done it. They would have let me die if it meant saving themselves. Aaron studied her for a moment. She was young, perhaps only a few years older than some of his recruits back on Earth, but the sadness in her voice was heavy, as though she carried a lifetime of expectation already. You don't agree with him, do you? Aaron asked quietly. The princess shook her head. I do not, but my mother rules. And she sees your actions not as kindness but as power. She believes your people hide something dangerous, something she must control. Aaron sighed, looking out at the glowing trees. Your mother is wrong. Humanity doesn't hide anything. We just try to protect what we can. The princess gave him a small, almost hopeful smile. Perhaps, but she will not let you go until she decides she has learned your secret. And I fear she may never decide. Before Aaron could answer, footsteps echoed through the garden. Guards approached, and the moment was gone. Later that night, alone in his room, Aaron lay awake staring at the crystal ceiling. He thought about his team. Were they still negotiating? Were they planning to rescue him? He doubted it. Earth was too new, too fragile in this galactic stage. They couldn't risk open conflict with the VAYA. I know, he realized bitterly. He was on his own, and yet he wasn't powerless. He had seen the way the princess looked at him with curiosity, even respect. He had seen doubt flicker in the eyes of younger nobles when he spoke of sacrifice. Maybe the queen thought she was studying him, holding him like a specimen. But the truth was, he was planting something dangerous in her empire. An idea. The idea that humans did not fight only for gain. That they could fight for others, even strangers. That they could give their lives not out of weakness, but strength. And that idea, Aaron knew, could be more powerful than any weapon. The next day the queen summoned him again. This time, the hall was filled with nobles, their eyes sharp and expectant. It was no longer just questioning, it was a test. The queen rose from her throne, her voice echoing. Human, today, you will prove your words. You say you protect without gain, that you sacrifice without reason, then let us see. Two guards dragged in a small alien creature, shackled and trembling. It was no Veyari, its body small, its eyes wide with fear. Aaron recognized the look instantly. It was prey caught in a predator's den. The queen pointed to the creature. This one is nothing. A thief worthless. Show us your instincts, human. Will you protect it, even knowing it has no value? Or will you let it die, as logic demands? The hall grew silent, every noble leaning forward. Aaron's heart pounded. He knew this was a trap. If he acted, he would anger the queen. If he stayed silent, he would betray everything he had said. He stepped forward slowly, his voice steady. I'll protect it. Oh! A ripple of shock spread through the nobles. The queen's eyes narrowed, her expression unreadable. Aaron stood between the guards and the trembling creature. His shoulders squared despite the tension in the room. You think this proves strength? The queen asked coldly. Aaron met her gaze. No, it proves humanity. The hall filled with whispers, arguments, confusion. Some nobles sneered. Others looked uncertain. The princess, watching from the side, stared at him with wide eyes full of something like admiration. The queen raised her hand, silencing all. Her eyes locked on Aaron, burning with a mix of fury and fascination. You are a strange creature. Human, she said at last, and I will not let you go. Not until I break your secret open. Not until I understand what makes you this way. Her words rang like chains. The morning light filtered through the crystal walls of Aaron's chamber, filling it with a soft golden glow. He had not slept much. The queen's words echoed in his mind. You are a strange creature, human, and I will not let you go. He sat at the edge of his bed, fists clenched, staring out at the alien city. His body was healing, but his spirit was restless. He had been a prisoner for too many days. Each morning brought the same pattern. Questions from the queen, stares from the nobles, whispers about the human who would protect others for no gain. But today felt different. The palace halls hummed with unusual energy. Guards moved faster. Servants whispered nervously. Something was happening. When the door slid open, 2 armored guards entered. The queen summons you, one said flatly. Aaron rose without argument. Resistance now would change nothing. He walked between them, his steps echoing down the long corridors of crystal and gold. They passed towering statues of Veyari kings, murals showing battles and victories, every image a celebration of power. To the Veyari, strength was everything. Mercy was weakness. Sacrifice was foolishness. And yet here he was, living contradiction they could not ignore. The grand chamber was filled to its highest balconies. Nobles in shimmering robes lined the seats, their luminous skin glowing faintly in the dim light. Their eyes followed Aaron as if he carried a weapon, though he had none. At the center, on her high throne, sat the queen. Regal, unshaken, her silver crown gleamed like a blade. To her right stood the princess, her hands folded. Her face calm, but her eyes troubled. Aaron stopped at the base of the throne. Under the weight of hundreds of alien stares, the queen spoke, her voice echoing across the chamber. Human, you have spoken of sacrifice, of compassion, of protecting the weak. My nobles think these are lies. They say your kind must use these words as weapons. Today, you will be tested again. Aaron's jaw tightened. Test me all you want. I'll tell you the same truth every time. A low murmur rippled through the nobles. Defiance was dangerous here, but he did not care. The queen raised her hand, and the hall fell silent. 2 guards dragged forward another figure, a Veyari soldier, bound at the wrists, his armor stripped. The soldier's head was lowered, but Aaron could see the bitterness in his eyes. This one, the queen declared, was caught aiding the assassins who sought my daughter's life. By our law, his blood is forfeit. But I would see your instincts again, human. Would you defend even him? Would you shield a traitor as you shielded my child? The hall stirred with shock. Nobles hissed at the idea, their voices sharp with anger. Defending the princess had been strange enough, but a traitor? Impossible. Aaron stood in silence for a long moment, his mind turning. He looked at the soldier, then at the queen. He could feel the trap tightening around him. If he tried to kill your daughter, Aaron said slowly, then he must face justice. Protecting someone doesn't mean excusing what they've done. But his eyes hardened. Justice isn't the same as cruelty. Killing for the sake of fear or pride, that's not justice. That's power. And power without mercy is weakness. The nobles erupted into outrage. To accuse the queen of weakness was nearly unthinkable. But Aaron didn't flinch. The queen's eyes narrowed, studying him like a hawk. You speak boldly for a prisoner? I speak honestly, Aaron shot back. That's the only way I know. The hall grew tense. Nobles glared, their glowing skin pulsing with anger. Yet in the corner of Aaron's vision, he saw something else. A few younger nobles, their faces uncertain, whispering not in anger, but in thought. Seeds of doubt were taking root. The queen dismissed the guards with a wave. The traitor soldier was dragged away, his fate left hanging. Then she rose from her throne, descending the steps until she stood only a few paces from Aaron. You think your words can change my empire? She asked softly. Aaron met her gaze. I don't care about your empire. I care about what's right. Queen tilted her head, her expression unreadable. For the first time, Aaron thought he saw something flicker in her eyes. Not anger, it's not arrogance, but curiosity. Later, Aaron was escorted back to his chamber. But this time, the princess followed. When the guards left them alone, she spoke quickly, her voice low. You are changing things, Commander, she said. The nobles argue in private. Some see your words as dangerous, others as inspiring. Aaron frowned. I'm not here to inspire anyone. I'm just telling the truth. The princess shook her head. The truth can be more dangerous than any lie. She stepped closer, her eyes searching his. My people fear weakness more than death. But you, she hesitated. You make weakness look like strength. They cannot understand it, and that frightens them. Aaron gave a small, humorless smile. Good. Maybe they should be frightened. The princess looked down, conflicted. My mother will never let you go. She sees you as her puzzle, her prize. But the others. Some whisper that you are dangerous enough to kill. Aaron studied her face, the worry written across it. For all her royal grace, she was still too young to carry such fear. He placed a steady hand on her shoulder. I've been through worse, he said gently. If your people want to kill me, they'll have to try hard. Her eyes met his again, softer now. I believe you. But I also believe you are not alone in this anymore. She left quickly, her robe sweeping behind her, leaving Aaron alone with her words. Not alone. The days that followed only deepened the clash. Whenever Aaron spoke in the queen's court, the nobles reacted with fury. They shouted that humans lied, that weakness would destroy them, that compassion was poison, but some did not shout. Some listened. Aaron could see it, the younger ones shifting in their seats, their expressions uncertain. He was breaking something open, something fragile but real. At night, in his chamber, thought about Earth. He wondered if his people even knew what storm he was stirring inside this alien empire. And he wondered if they would ever forgive him for the risks he took. But deep down, he knew this wasn't just about Earth anymore. It was about showing these aliens that humanity's strength was not in weapons or ships. It was in choice, the choice to protect, the choice to sacrifice, the choice to care. And once an idea like that spread, it was impossible to kill. One evening, Aaron was brought again before the queen. The hall was smaller this time, more private, with only a handful of nobles present. The queen stood by a tall window, the twin suns, casting her figure in gold. You defy me again and again, she said quietly, and yet I cannot destroy you. Do you know why? Aaron shook his head. No, because if I kill you, she continued, turning to face him, you will become a martyr. A symbol, and that is far more dangerous than any living man. Aaron almost smiled. Sounds like you're learning something. The queen stepped closer, her eyes sharp. Do not mistake curiosity for weakness. I could keep you here until the stars burn out, and still you would be mine. Aaron met her gaze without fear. No crown, no empire can own me. My choices are mine. That's something you'll never take." For a long moment, they stood in silence. Then the queen turned away, her robe sweeping across the floor. "Take him back," she ordered the guards. As they dragged him out, Aaron saw the princess watching from the shadows. Her eyes met his, full of something he had not seen before, hope. And in that moment, Aaron knew the truth. The queen might control his body, but his spirit was already beyond her reach. Aaron Hale's days in the palace had become a strange rhythm. He awoke, he was summoned, he answered questions, and he was watched. Yet every interaction left a trace whispers among the nobles, glances from the younger advisors, and the quiet attention of the princess. He could feel it, slowly, imperceptibly. The walls of the queen's empire were shifting not through violence, but through ideas. And the queen herself seemed more intrigued than ever this morning. Was led through the long crystal corridors to a chamber unlike any he had seen before. It was smaller than the grand halls, dimly lit with glowing panels along the walls. Humming with energy, the queen waited, standing at the far end. Her expression was unreadable, though Aaron thought he saw a flicker of calculation in her eyes. "You have made your beliefs clear," she said. "You speak of protection, loyalty, and sacrifice. Yet I have not seen your ultimate test. Today, you will make a choice. One that will define not only you, but your kind and possibly this empire." Aaron tensed. He had expected tests, questions, traps, but a choice. He waited for her to explain. The queen gestured, and two guards brought forward a device Aaron did not recognize. It looked like a chair, but with glowing restraints and panels surrounding it. A faint hum filled the room. "This device can enhance your abilities," she explained. "Strength, speed, perception. You could become a weapon beyond imagining. I offer it to you. Accept, and you will serve me directly. Refuse, and you will remain my prisoner, subject to my will, forever. There is no other path." Aaron studied the chair, understanding immediately. It was not a gift, it was a leash. To accept meant betraying his own people, his own code, everything he stood for. But to refuse, he would remain trapped. "I cannot accept," he said finally. The queen's eyes narrowed. "So you choose chains over freedom? Death over power?" "I choose my conscience," Aaron replied. "No empire can own my choices. No crown can dictate my morality." The hall grew tense. A few nobles whispered nervously, their expressions a mix of admiration and disbelief. The younger ones watched him closely, clearly questioning their own beliefs. The queen's voice dropped, sharp and dangerous. "You leave me no choice. You will remain here under my control until I decide your fate." Aaron stood tall. He knew her threats were not empty, but in that moment, he felt a surge of resolve. He had survived battles on Earth, ambushes in deep space, and entire squads of enemies. A palace and a queen's decree would not break him. As if sensing his thoughts, the queen stepped closer. "You are bold, human. Your defiance fascinates me. I cannot destroy what I do not understand. But know this, your refusal has consequences. You will face trials, tests, and scrutiny beyond imagination. And yet," she paused, almost thoughtfully, "you may survive if your will is strong enough." Aaron met her gaze evenly. "My will is not for you to test. It is my own."
Ow!
She studied him for several long moments before speaking again. "Very well, you will remain, but you are not entirely without freedom. You may move within certain boundaries. Observe, learn, and perhaps in time, I will see the truth of your nature." Days passed, and Aaron adapted to this strange form of limited freedom. He moved through the palace corridors with guards at his side, visited the gardens, and was even allowed brief audiences with the princess. Each day, he learned more about the Varia, about their strict hierarchies, their obsession with power, and their fear of weakness. But more importantly, he saw cracks in their system. Young nobles who had once dismissed him began to hesitate when speaking. Servants who had feared him smiled slightly as he passed. And the princess, growing bolder each day, asked questions of her mother that she had never dared before. One evening, as Aaron walked through the glowing gardens, the princess approached him quietly. "You are changing things," she said softly. "I see the other nobles looking at you differently, even my mother." She hesitated. Even she cannot seem to decide what to do with you. Aaron studied her face. "Ideas are stronger than chains, princess. One person can plant a thought that spreads like fire. Your mother may try to control me, but she cannot control what your people think once the idea takes root." The princess nodded slowly. "I see that now, and yet it frightens me. You challenge everything we were taught, everything we were told to believe. I do not know if we are ready for it." Aaron smiled faintly. "Sometimes being ready doesn't matter. Change comes whether you are ready or not." The next trial came swiftly. Aaron was summoned to a hall where several alien scholars awaited. They carried devices he did not recognize, tools for measuring strength, perception, and reflexes. The queen's voice carried across the room, calm and sharp. "Human," she said, "we have heard much of your courage and defiance. But courage alone does not suffice in this empire. You will undergo tests of skill, speed, and strategy. You will prove that your kind is more than words and ideals. Or you will remain a prisoner indefinitely." Aaron studied the devices, understanding their purpose without needing explanation. He would be tested, but he would not compromise his beliefs. The trials began. He was pushed to his physical limits, required to react to rapidly changing simulations, to defend multiple targets, and to make split-second decisions. Each task was designed to see if he could act purely out of instinct or if he would fail when the stakes were complex. He performed each task with precision. But what set him apart was not speed or strength, it was his judgment. Time after time, he chose protection over aggression. Careful thought over reckless action. The queen watched from above, silent. The nobles whispered. Some were impressed, others were outraged, yet Aaron remained steadfast, unshaken by the pressure. Finally, the trials ended. Aaron, exhausted but steady, faced the queen once more. "You continue to surprise me," she said softly. "I expected failure. I expected obedience, and yet you are unchanged." Aaron's chest rose and fell with steady breaths. "I will not change. I cannot betray my conscience. That is the only choice that matters." The queen studied him for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, she spoke with a trace of admiration. "Perhaps there is something to your kind after all. Perhaps," she trailed off, her voice softening, "perhaps there is strength in your weakness." Aaron felt the weight of those words. He knew her meaning. She still sought control, still refused to release him, but for the first time, he sensed a flicker of respect. That night, Aaron walked the palace gardens alone. The stars were brilliant against the dark sky. The twin moons of the Vyari rose above, casting silver light on the glowing plants. He thought about Earth, about his team, about the dangers still ahead. He also thought about the princess, who had begun to see a world beyond the strict rules of her people. He had sparked questions, doubts, and courage. Even in chains, he was changing the empire. He smiled faintly. "It's not bad for one human," he muttered to himself. A quiet voice answered him. "Not bad at all." Aaron turned. The princess was there, standing at the edge of the glowing stream, watching him. Her eyes were filled with a mix of worry and admiration. "You've done more than protect me," she said softly. "You've shown us another way. Even if my mother does not see it yet, others are beginning to understand." Aaron shook his head. "I haven't done anything heroic. I've only chosen what I think is right." "Right," she repeated, smiling faintly. "It may not be the way of our empire, but it is the way of your people, and perhaps it is the way of the future." Aaron looked up at the stars. Chains of choice were heavy, but he carried them with his head high. For the first time, he realized something important. Freedom was more than escaping a room or leaving a palace. Freedom was keeping your principles alive, even when others tried to break you. The halls of the Vyari Palace were unusually quiet. The usual whispers and murmurs of nobles were replaced by tense anticipation. Word of Aaron Hale's defiance and courage had spread like wildfire. The younger nobles whispered among themselves, questioning the rigid rules they had been raised with. The older ones scowled, unsure what to make of the human who refused to bow to tradition. Aaron himself moved through the corridors, shoulder healing fully now, his mind focused. Every day brought new challenges, but also new victories, small quiet victories. He had sparked questions, doubts, and courage in hearts that had never questioned their queen. Yet he knew the queen remained his greatest obstacle. She still controlled his movements, still claimed him as her prisoner. The princess found him in the palace, gardens as the twin moons rose above the crystalline towers. Her figure shimmered in the soft silver light. "You've done more than anyone imagined," she said softly. "Even some of the nobles who once scorned you are beginning to see a different way." Aaron shook his head. "I haven't done anything magical. I've only chosen to do what is right. That's all." The princess's eyes sparkled. "Sometimes doing the right thing is more powerful than any weapon. You've shown that to all of us." Aaron smiled faintly. "I hope it's enough." Before she could respond, the doors to the garden opened. Guards arrived, bowing as the queen entered. Her presence was as commanding as ever, yet there was a tension in her stance Aaron had not seen before. She had come not to punish, but to confront him. "You have stirred thoughts? I did not intend to awaken," the queen said. Her voice carried through the garden like steel. "Your kind, humanity. It is dangerous not because of weapons, but because of ideals. You make my people question everything I have taught them." Aaron stepped forward. "It's not dangerous to care, to protect, or to sacrifice. That's strength, not weakness. You can't control hearts, only bodies. And hearts choose their own path." The queen's eyes narrowed. She moved closer, her crown glinting in the moonlight. "You speak boldly, human. You are still my prisoner, yet you dare challenge me openly." Aaron met her gaze. "I've already given you what I can't truth. I will not betray my conscience for freedom. That is not weakness. That is the only freedom that matters." The queen studied him silently, and for a moment, the centuries of tradition and pride in her expression softened. Perhaps for the first time, she realized she could not break him. "You have courage," she admitted finally. "And yet, I cannot release you, not entirely, but I will. Allow a compromise. You may remain in my service as a guest of the court. Not a prisoner, but not free to leave as you wish. For now." Aaron nodded slowly. He understood the compromise, yet he also understood its value. The queen could bind his body, but she could not bind his influence. He had already shown the younger nobles, the princess, and even some of the older advisors that there was strength in humanity's ideals. Over the next days, Aaron continued to act as protector and advisor in the court, but differently than before. He no longer operated solely under the queen's scrutiny. He spoke openly, advising on matters of defense, strategy, and diplomacy, but always emphasizing ethics, justice, and the protection of the innocent. The younger nobles watched him closely. They began to mimic his choices not because he commanded them, but because they saw the power in his integrity. Decisions once dictated by fear or tradition were now considered carefully. Aaron noticed a change in the princess as well. She moved with confidence, questioning her mother's edicts, advocating for fairness and compassion, even when it risked her own comfort. Slowly, she became a voice for the ideals Aaron had embodied from the start. One evening, the queen summoned him once more. This time, she did not bring the harsh tone of authority, but the weight of reflection. "You have done more than I expected," she said quietly. "You have not only survived, but changed the hearts of those around you. My daughter, my nobles, some are beginning to question what I have ruled for centuries. You have planted a seed I did not anticipate." Aaron inclined his head respectfully. "I only did what I had to do. I protected her, and I stood by what I believed was right. That was all." Queen regarded him for a long moment. "Perhaps humanity has a kind of strength we do not understand. A strength in choice, in compassion, in defiance. That is dangerous indeed." Aaron smiled faintly. "Dangerous. Maybe, but it's the only way to build something that lasts." For the first time, the queen did not argue. She turned and gestured to the nobles, who bowed slightly in acknowledgement. "He may remain among us, for now," she said. "Not fully free, but tolerated. Perhaps even necessary." In the weeks that followed, the court changed. Decisions were debated more openly. Younger nobles began to question traditions that had never been questioned before. Some of the older advisors, though reluctant, began to listen. The palace was no longer simply a seat of control. It had become a place of thought and discussion. Aaron continued his duties, always aware of the Queen's lingering control. But he knew he had achieved something far greater than physical freedom. He had sparked a change in Hearts of Force that no crown, no throne, and no empire could ever fully suppress. The princess often visited him in the gardens, learning from him, discussing ideas, and testing the bounds of what she had learned from both her mother and the human. Together, they began to envision a world where compassion and courage could guide an empire, rather than fear and blind obedience. One night, as they walked beneath the twin moons, she spoke softly. "Commander Hale, you have shown us a power we never knew existed. Not a weapon, not an army, but the heart. And that heart is more lasting than any throne." Aaron looked at her, seeing not just a princess, but a leader in the making. "It is in all of us," he said. "Even the strongest empire can be shaped by choices, by conscience, and by the courage to protect what matters." The princess smiled, a mixture of hope and determination in her eyes. "Then perhaps the future will be different. Because of you." Aaron nodded. He had no illusions about the road ahead. The Queen still ruled, still had power, still could bind him if she chose. But the ideas he had planted, choices, courage, sacrifice, had taken root. They would grow in ways the Queen could not control. And that, he realized, was humanity's greatest gift. Months passed, and word of the humans' courage spread beyond the palace walls. The Viari people whispered of the human who had protected the princess, who had refused to bow to the throne, and who had taught their children the value of choice and conscience. Aaron received no orders from Earth, no urgent messages. Yet he knew his mission had expanded. He was no longer simply a protector of one life. He had become a symbol. Even the Queen, while still wary, began to recognize it. One evening, she spoke to him privately, her voice softer than ever. "You are unlike any being I have known. Perhaps I underestimated your kind. Perhaps I learned something I did not wish to know. But know this, human, the ideas you carry, they are yours alone. They cannot be taken. They cannot be destroyed. You have done more than survive. You have altered the course of this empire." Aaron met her gaze, unflinching. "Then perhaps it is time for all of us to learn. Not just my kind, but yours as well." She studied him for a long time before nodding slowly. "Perhaps." Years later, when Aaron finally returned to Earth, he carried no weapons, no trophies, no recognition from galactic powers. But he carried something far greater, proof that humanity's true strength was not in technology or war, but in the choices they made, in the courage to protect others, and in the hearts that refused to yield. Back on Earth, he shared his experiences with others, telling them of the alien empire, the Queen, and the princess who had grown into a leader of compassion and courage. He told them of the ideas that could change worlds, of the choices that shaped civilizations, and of the quiet power of a single human who refused to compromise conscience for convenience. And across the stars, whispers of humanity's strange power, the strength to sacrifice, to inspire, to protect, continued to grow. Aaron Hale had been a prisoner of an alien queen, but he left as something far greater, a living testament to the enduring legacy of humanity. Because in the end, the human spirit was a force no empire could control and no queen could ever truly hold.